Gandhi chito kha ka kelte khawa chanulo e senge nga e senge.
Kuzambala and welcome to Storytellers of Drukyul. I'm Chunizuk Sultan, your host. Today with me, we have a very special person who started off as a vlogger but has now published a book. Yes, it is the very popular Denka from Denkars Getaway. Denka, welcome to Storytellers of Drukyul.
Thank you so much.
First of all, let me congratulate you on this. And I've heard you speak so many times about it and the hard work. You said this is 4 years in coming?
Yes, it took me 4 years. Perhaps more than 4 years. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So first of all, congratulations. A lot of the people know Denka as someone who travels and vlogs more. But before that, you were a teacher?
Oh yes, I went to Thailand as a volunteer English teacher.
Okay.
And that was the beginning of this book actually.
Oh,
So,
I see. Okay, it is mentioned in the
Yes,
book.
it is
It's one of the
mentioned in
first
here, yeah.
articles, and there are some 70-something articles more.
Yes, more than 70 articles. There were more articles, but I thought maybe I'll just put some of my favorites. So all these articles in the book are my favorite ones.
I see. So Denka, when you were teaching in Thailand, right? This was a job that you took. This was your first job.
Yes, it was right after my graduation.
So what about that made you want to tell stories?
So, in one way, it was a beautiful coincidence. I got very lucky. I got to teach in one of the women prison in Thailand. So, in a week, I would go to prison twice. And every time I went in the prison, the inmates would ask me, "Oh, how's the town outside? How's the villages outside?" So, those questions would always give me that second thought, would always trigger me. Knowing the fact of how curious the people behind the bar are regarding the outside world. So I, as someone who had liberty to travel outside, stroll outside, then that's where my journey started. I would travel around provinces. I would travel around each town, nook and corner of the places. And that's where I would write down what I see. I would write down what I felt about the place, and then while I returned to the prison, I would tell the inmates like, "Hey, your village looks like this, that province looks like this." So like telling these stories would actually bring tears in inmates' eyes, and that I felt was a very hopeful scene where inmates always looked forward to coming out of the bar. So in that way, I felt like, wow, the storytelling could be really amazing. So that's where my journey as a traveler, as an explorer, kick-started from the prison.
Wow.
Yeah.
And it sounded like a pretty interesting job. Then why did you leave that job and come back?
Because I had to come back home. Eventually, I had to come back home. So, and in between, while I was in Thailand, I would travel in Southeast Asian countries, and there was no country like Bhutan. And I never felt Bhutan in any sense in any other countries. So that's where I was like, oh, I need to come back home and explore my country better rather than getting to know the culture and tradition of some other. I mean, I'm not being biased here, but I felt as a Bhutanese, it would be nice for me to only know my country better. So in that sense, I came back home.
I see. So you returned back from Thailand,
Yes.
and your first trip within the country was in to Phobjikha, right?
Yes.
From Thimphu.
Yes.
Now, back then, vlogging was popular back then, outside of Bhutan. It wasn't so in the country.
Right.
How did you go about it?
I just went with the flow. Firstly, I started as a blogger, right? I would write about the places. Then I saw this vlogging trend abroad. Then I thought like, oh, why are Bhutanese not starting this trend? Then I thought maybe I'll kickstart this trend. So everywhere I traveled to, I had my phone. Then I would film that and I would edit on my phone. So that's how the vlogging trend started. And being a vlogger only widened my audience because I had group of people who would read my blog. Later on, I had massive viewers who would watch the vlogs. So in that sense, people knew more about Bhutan. They knew more about the places. They knew more about different or unique culture and tradition that we had in country. So incorporating blogging and vlogging only enhanced my travel experiences.
Hey guys, I'm super excited because I'm heading towards. This is one of the exit and entry point to Lunana. So
traveling within the country is way cheaper than flying abroad, right? When I kickstarted, I was really broke. I couldn't ask my parents much to fund my travels every time because I was basically on the road and over the mountains. So what I did was, Bhutanese people are very kind, very hospitable, right? So I would do couch surfing, nebnyani, you know, if I don't have money, nebnyani. And because the community vitality is so strong in Bhutan. Like if I'm traveling to Bumtang, I would rather call up my cousin or auntie and tell them I'm coming to Bumtang, you know, can I stay with you? So in that way, the traveling cost only, in that sense, it becomes inexpensive to travel within Bhutan, and also sponsorship. So initially I was begging that tour operators to sponsor my trip, and they would. There are some tour operators who really helped me to pursue my passion of traveling. So sponsorship, couch surfing, and traveling by bus. And my favorite mode of transportation is bolero. So I would just hitchhike. I mean, come
Bololo.
on. Yeah,
Is that
bololo. I call it
bololo?
bololo, and everybody thinks I make mistake. I'm like, I like it. I like to call it bololo. So bololo, couch surfing, these were the things. I still continued, you know, like riding on bololo, couch surfing.
It's just a preference now.
It's
More,
the
it's not
preference.
even-
In fact, I find luxury in all this. You know, rather than driving in SUV or rather than staying in 5-star hotel, I would sacrifice my time or effort or energy to invest myself in staying at local homestay or riding with the local people. In that sense, we get to learn so much about the community.
And Denka, you started off as a solo tourist.
Yes.
And I think you're still continuing to travel solo a lot of the times.
Yes,
More.
yes.
However, the cultural expectations and the it's not a normal thing to see a girl hitchhiking and going
Right.
on a bolero, even
I know.
by yourself. How did you have all the courage?
I never had second question when it came to, you know, traveling solo. I never thought like, whoa, this could be scary or this could be dangerous. I never had those moments. And I think it's very mental. If you feel like, oh, I can do this on my own, then it's like the world just offers you the way to do it. So I never had those questions. In fact, I feel good that I travel solo because I see so much of preferences when I travel solo. People are like, Buma, where do you Gati Juni? Show Garina Zibingai Jinge. No?
Sounds very sketchy. Doesn't it scare you though?
But I'm not that stupid too. Like I just like, okay, let me judge this person for a while. Say, so people are actually nice. Like road nara chamch deojen Gati Juni mo ke jinge no. And then people are nice.
And you get to know the other person too.
Exactly. At one time, I was literally hitchhiking. So there was whole family traveling, and they literally stopped and asked me, "Where are you going?" So I said, "I need to go somewhere. Can you guys take me?" And they were very generous, and I felt like, oh, maybe I should give them lunch in return of the transportations. In fact, they treated me, and later on they were like, do you have place to stay? I said, no, I'm planning to look for one. They're like, oh, stay with us, you know.
Look at this.
So people are very generous. People are very generous. So being a solo traveler, I never take it as a threat to myself, but I rather enjoy traveling
And
solo.
it's opportunities,
It is,
opens
it is.
doors to so many other
Exactly.
experiences. Oh, Denka, wow. All right.
Yeah.
Denka, now a lot of the people who follow your vlog, watch your videos, or even listen to you, hear so many positive things.
Right.
But I want to I want to put a little damper, and I want to ask you. I want to ask you
Okay.
if you've ever had an experience where things didn't work out like you planned, or someone ripped you off, or like something like that, like something just like you felt disappointed. Because the reality is that there are disappointments.
Right.
Not everything Denka plans for her vlogs would go as
Right.
she's planned. So I want to know the behind the scenes disappointments.
I think behind the scene disappointment would be not literally meeting with a person who would be threat to me, but it has always been the weather. The weather has made me cry 1,001 times. Every time I'm trekking up at the mountain, and every time I feel like, damn, this is the view, I need to film this. Then there's like fog, there's the storm, there's snow. So I think it's the weather that has made me feel at the lowest, because there was nothing I could do to stop the mad weather. So I would blame the weather for causing my lowest day, and sometimes the loneliness, not really the physical environment, but the tourist within me. You know, it would be the loneliness that would drag me down sometime, because I'm certainly at a place, and if I'm at that place for a longer period of time, I feel like, oh, Denka, what are you doing here? Get going, you know? So sometimes those were the days which would really put me down to the lowest. But somehow I would just like manage out. And now it's been 5 years, so I've befriended loneliness, and I've also written about loneliness in my book. So I have befriended loneliness, and I have also befriended the weather. So now I make myself flexible to my trekking itinerary. So I feel like, okay, the weather might trigger syllabi, so I make sure I keep myself flexible with all these modes.
So Denka, what are some things that you must do for you to make sure you're traveling, and let's say you're doing a trek? What are some preparations that you have to do ahead of that trek?
Well, firstly, I make sure I have all my logistics are ready for me to experience the beautiful journey. And then, like I mentioned earlier, it's always the content. So I make sure where would be the Instagrammable spot, where would be the next pass where I could really talk about or film. So these are the things that I prepare within myself, and I also make sure I read some time about the places. However, the downfall within the literature in country, especially the travel literature, is there's very less. If I want to, lately I crossed one of the highest passes so far in my trekking journey, Sinchanda Pass. It's almost 5,100 meters above sea level. Although that's one of the highest pass the trekkers would be trekking within Kingdom, there's no literature about that pass whatsoever. So I do face since I can't find literature on these places, then I just go and do literature from my perspective. So in that sense, I also get to contribute to the literature rather than just consuming the literatures that already exist. So yeah, in that sense, I really try to prepare myself really well, because I feel storytelling is so important and it should be very accurate. So if we land up misinforming the people, then it's a huge problem, right? So I always make sure I inform them at least correctly. Yeah, if not, I try my best to just let people know that this thing is there. So.
I want to ask you, were there ever a point in your 5 years of being a tourist within the country where you thought, you know what, I'm going to give up, this is not for me?
Right. I had that moment when I actually kick-started, because I was on an adventure, right? And I was financially on an adventure too. And I ended up giving up my rented apartment. I literally moved back to my parents. And Well, it was easier for me because then I didn't have to worry about paying off rent because I didn't have my rented apartment anymore. So then it was almost a year I would go around travel agents and they would not be convinced. I couldn't convince them of what I could offer as a beginner traveler, beginner content creator. And people did not have faith in me. They thought like, oh, she could be like a random traveler. Why would we fund her? Why would we sponsor her? So financially, it was very difficult for me. And that was the time where I felt like maybe my upper was right. Maybe I should have done RCSC. Maybe I should have got myself a civil servant job. So that was the phase where I felt so low. And then I also got really sick. I think it was all the mental pressure that I put on myself. And I was very ill. And at that moment of time, even my parents were like, I think you're draining yourself too much, following your passion. So even I then talked to myself and I was like, maybe Denka, it's time you move on and find some other things to do, like serious things to do in life. So
But then you didn't give up. What was that?
I didn't give up because like I got His Majesty's audience. It was as if His Majesty knew like, oh, Denka is on the verge of giving up. So yeah, ever since I never looked back because I mean, I would have never got His Majesty's audience as String Denka, you know. I got His Majesty's audience as Denkar's Getaway, as a woman who traveled around country. So ever since I was like, oh no, Denka, you know what? I think you're on the right track. Don't look back. So that was the moment where I promised myself, Denka, no matter what, no matter how financially bad you would be, you should never give up, Sila. But then I just continued doing what I was doing.
Denka, the title of the book is The Tourist Within.
Yes.
How did you come up with it?
It took me so long to actually really come up with a good name for the book. However, I landed up coming up with this title, The Tourist Within. And for now, everyone is complimenting me with the title, The Tourist Within, and especially with the reform in tourism. I feel like many can really relate themselves to this transformation. And many people get me asking the reason why I named this book, The Tourist Within. There's two reasons why. Firstly, the tourist within could mean to a person within, exploring within yourself. When you're traveling, you know your strength, your weakness. It's basically you exploring within yourself, right? And in general, the tourist within is Bhutanese traveling within their kingdom.
Denka, how do you feel now that you are an author?
More pressure because now people are like, oh, are you planning your next book? I'm like, okay, let me sink in with this first book. It feels great. I mean, I always wanted to be an author. And to see my book come alive, it's like, oh, Denkar, you have done it. And yeah, I think seeing my book, I mean, like this book is the first product from Denkar's Getaway, right? So that's why my mom and dad, they were like, wow, you have done it. Like they were so proud of me. So because they were so proud of me, I felt like, well, maybe I have really made a difference in our lives. So yeah, it makes me utterly happy. And I feel like anything is possible. Yeah, anything is possible. Because it was a dream one time to be an author, but now I am an author. So yeah, it feels great. Honestly, it feels great. Yeah, so much of pride in me right now.
Yeah, I think, Denka, you have seen yourself cry. You have seen yourself work so hard. And I think it is only fair that you feel the pride in yourself, Imina, that you've achieved so much, that you've come this far, doing something that you genuinely feel passionate about more. So I think it's only fair that you're proud of yourself. Denka, now with being somebody on camera, in front of the camera, there are always people who criticize you. And I'm sure the criticism started when you started vlogging, right? And I'm sure there's still people criticizing you now too, 5 years later. How do you deal with that?
Oh, well, initially when I started, I'm sure you faced the same too. Not many. There would be like few people who would judge me on how I look, and I think they really could not digest of how confident a woman can be or could be. So many people would always pick on my overconfidence and how I looked. But I'm someone who do not really dwell into negativity or negative comments. I just ignore to read negative comment, and in that sense, it just makes me safe with all the positivity within. So I really ignore all these negativities, and every time if people have issue with me, I'm like, it's their problem, not my problem, you know. So I really do not care of what.
Were you always this wise with the negative comments?
Initially, no. Initially, it would hurt me. Like, if someone says, like, hey, I hate you, of course it hurts me. Like, I'm a human too, right? I have an emotion too. So if someone tells you, like, I don't like you, of course it hurts, even if it's a stranger. But later on, I realized, wow, you know, like, I felt like it's their problem. I mean, if they don't like me, it's their problem, you know? So I felt like, oh, just let go and just like be grateful of people you have around who loves you so much. So I dwell into positivity, and I really do not think about all the negative vibes that I get. I've grown so much over the last 5 years.
I was gonna say, because I met you. Well, I first saw Denkars' vlog on Instagram, because I don't do YouTube as often, and I remember looking at this young girl, very passionate, very confident. Yes, your confidence does show.
Right.
And I did not, because I had at that point gotten used to seeing people come and go, and not be consistent.
Oh, right.
So I did not imagine Denka getting this big.
Wow.
And I even had the opportunity to go on a 4-day, right? Or 3-day.
Yes.
It's still like a dream drug path with her. That was my first ever hike. Trek. There you go.
Trek.
I had given birth to my daughter, and I was physically not ready yet. I took the challenge when it came my way, and I went with her. And I met this, Denka still has managed to keep that very pure naiveness about her, and that's something I pray that you maintain, Yamina, because it's very raw, and it's so unfiltered and so
Right.
pure to look at. And so I hope you keep that, first of all. Secondly, I met a girl who loved traveling up in the mountains, but with no sunscreen.
But now
No
I
sunscreen.
wear sunscreen.
No sunscreen up on the mountains. And this was the Denka I met.
Right.
And now, Denka, I want you to take a look back, all right? And see, and let us know
Right.
and tell us what you think is one of the biggest growth you've achieved.
So, besides the physical appearance, of course, I credit you for giving me that brutally rude comment of saying, Denka, you must wear sunscreen. So now I wear sunscreen every day, even while I'm at the foothills. So, but content-wise, I feel like I've grown so much within the content creation. Before, I was very raw. I would speak what I would see, on the field, from the spot, right away, no filters. But now I've realized how important it is to actually deliver good stories. So in that sense, I make sure I research about places. I really get to know about the landmark or the structures that I'm talking about. So in the context field, I've grown a lot in the last 5 years. And yeah, physically, I've learned to love myself more and to take care of myself more than ever.
For those of you who've been following would know this, but for those of you who aren't ardent followers of Denkar's Getaway wouldn't know this, but she has recently found a partner.
Oh my God.
Denka doesn't like talking about it, but I'm gonna ask one question related to it. You have always been one of those people who just thought about something and just gone after it without having to discuss it with others, without having to get others' agreement, on board with it. Now that you have a partner, has things changed?
Not really, but in a good way. It has only complemented my life more. It has brought me more security, and when I travel, my partner also comes along with me. So that has only made my travels way easier, because I normally I have someone to arrange things that should have been arranged by myself, but now we complement each other. You know what I'm trying to say.
Yes.
So in that sense, it just makes our travels, my travel, and it just makes our travels easier, comfortable, and way fun. So it's nice. It's
so he's
nice.
an outdoors person.
Yes.
He likes hiking.
He treks more than me, so now think about it.
That wasn't possible. All right, but that's good. I'm very happy for you, Denka. Well, Denka, this was very, very interesting, and I'm really glad to have you here to be able to talk about the book, and especially about your journey. I think very few times we are so busy and so caught up in getting things done that we barely get to sit, stand, take a look back and be proud of how much we've come, how far we've come. And I feel like I was able to do that with you today, and this was a great opportunity. Thank you so much, and I wish you all the luck, Denka, for a lot more adventures, a lot more experiences and possibilities, and keep inspiring. You're a huge inspiration to a lot of the youth out there, and I hope you keep that inspiration alive. Denka.
Right. Thank you so much for always being an inspiration. I get inspired by you too. Like, really, thank you. I think it's, at the end of the day, we sort of seek inspiration from every individuals, and that only keeps us going. So I thank you. You have been the loudest cheerleader as a friend, as someone who I look up to. So thank you for also having me on this show. So.
Of course, Denka. Well, that was Denka from Denkar's Getaway, and today we were able to get her first name too, by the way. If you actually watch this, you will get that her first name is Tsiring Denka from Denkar's Getaway. With that, we wrap up today's episode. Thank you for watching. I'll catch you guys next week. Bye-bye.